Hello everyone, Rishi this side. So let's see how you can create these cool free flowing sliders. As you can see, wherever you release your cursor, the sliders stop. These are all made in Figma itself without using 10,000 variants. So let's get started. Alright, let's take the frame tool and let's draw our slider button. Hold shift and make a square 40 by 40. Let's zoom in a bit and let's rename this to slider button. You can use a keyboard shortcut, Command R or Control R, and let's make it round and let's drop in a background here and let's convert it into a component. Add a variant here, rename this to tap and rename property 1 to state. And so we'll be designing the tap state here. So for instance, once the user tap, let's add a slide stroke and let's go to our prototype window, select the slider button, make a connection, and instead of on click it should be mouse down. So mouse down is equivalent to the mouse press state. So as long as you have kept your mouse down, it will be changing to the tap state. And select the tap state, draw a connection to the default state, and let's use mouse up. So which means if you press this one, it will change to the tap state, and once you release your left mouse button, that will trigger mouse up and it will go back to the default state. So let's go back to the design window. Let's drag a copy out of it by holding Alt or Option. Let's again take our frame tool, draw a frame. Let's call it slider. And let's make the width 400 by 100 maybe. Let's draw one more frame here and let's make the width 300 and let's call it slider range, and let's match the height to our button 40. Let's align our button to the vertical center and left of our slider range. Let's align slider range as well to center of our slider. And let's take a rectangle tool, hit R, and let's draw a slider BG. Let's rename it to slider BG. Remember not to keep this in the slider range. You need to move it beneath the slider range. Don't put inside the slider range frame. And let's center this one, maybe rounded corners, something like this. Now inside the slider range, let's take our rectangle tool again. Let's draw a rectangle and let's rename it to slider width. So make this slider width equivalent to the width of our slider range, which was 300. And let's move this one. Let me change the color for instance. Move it underneath the slider button. Let's move this one to the extreme left. Let's turn off the clip content for a moment. And let's center it vertically. And the trick here is you need to place an element equivalent to the width of your slider range and select your slider range frame, go to prototype window and turn on overflow horizontal. So let's see the preview. Select your slider frame, hit shift and spacebar. So now you can see our slider is moving, let me do one more thing. Let's give this a stroke for a moment and let's see the preview again. You can see our mouse press and mouse release is also working fine, and you can see our slider is going way beyond its limit. That is because we need to minus the width of our slider button from the slider width. So this is 40 pixel, so select the slider width and let's minus the width of our slider button, and let's move this again to the left edge. Now let's see the preview again. Select the slider frame, hit shift space, and you can see it's working fine. So that's how you make a slider. So let's remove the stroke which we provided and let's select the slider width and reduce to match the slider BG, which was 5 pixel. I think let's increase this a bit, 8 maybe, and let's increase this one to 8 as well. Let's move it up and select the slider range, and let's change our color to something more pleasant maybe. Select the slider range, hit clip content, and that's there. That's your slider. So another thing, if you want to try, like you saw in the original example, our slider was starting from the center itself. So how to do that? Let's make a copy of this slider and let's move the slider button to the center of our slider, and let's select our slider width as well and move it to the center, and we just need to double the width here so that it equally scrolls on both the sides. And after increasing the width, let's again align it to the center, and remember to reduce the opacity here. Now let's see the preview. Select slider, hit shift space. So now our slider is moving from the center. So I guess we need to now add the width of our slider button as well to exactly match the edge here. So let's do that as well. Select the slider width and let's add 40 pixel width, which is equivalent to our slider button. Let's see the preview again. Let me just increase the BG for improving the contrast here, and let's see. Yeah, so now it's exactly matching to the edge here. One more small detail we can add here is let's add a rounded corner to our slider width as well. So let's select the slider width and add 8 pixel of corner radius. Let's see the preview again. Let's add few more details and let's fix few things. As you can see, this edge is getting rounded just before our slider button, so let's fix that. It's a quick fix. So let's select our slider width, zoom in a bit, and let's just increase the width till here so that you don't see the initial rounded corners here. And let's copy this one and paste it in the slider frame. Let's center it out and let's decrease the width almost equivalent to the width of our slider button, and let's call it width fill and let's move it all the way down and just before the slider BG. And remember not to put this one inside the slider range frame. And let's align it. Let's align our slider width as well. Now if you see the preview, nice. So this is it guys. Let me know in the comments if you have any doubts or any other ideas to try something like this. See you in the next one. Bye bye.